Hey, how you doing today? Hope you're doing good. I am so excited today because we are about to start on a deep dive into a Tai Chi form which is really near and dear to my heart. Over the next 20, 21, 22 weeks or so, we're going to start to learn about something called the core form. And the core form is what I teach to my beginning students, but it's something that we can all benefit from. Doesn't matter where you're at in your practice. But it's a great, if you haven't done Tai Chi before, this is a great way to start and to kind of get yourself familiar with the postures and that kind of stuff. So I'm really excited to present this to you. A little bit about the core form. The core form was originally created by a man called Sifu Totton. And he created the Taoist Institute of Los Angeles. And he was my first Sifu. And you know, he is just an amazing teacher. I love this form. It's a great teaching tool and it's a great way to learn the basics of Tai Chi Chuan. One thing I do want to say that the form I'm going to be teaching is a slight variation from that original form. And I will put his link right down below. You can go in there and check out his form, go check out his website. I just encourage you to just dig into his work. He's just an amazing teacher. So when we talk about the core form, what makes it different than other forms? Well, let me say this, it's very short. And I mean that in the respect that we have something called the long form, which is 108 moves usually. And it takes 15, 20 minutes or so to do it. Then you have something called the short form. And the short form was created in 1957 as a way to this very hard to learn form, very long, you know, a couple of years to learn, year to learn. They wanted to figure out a way to break it down so everybody could learn it. So they created something called the short form. The short form was created. That's about 24 moves. So there's the short form. The core form is like the short form, okay? So you have the long form, you have the short form, and then you have the short form, and the short form is what we're going to be learning about. So one of the great things about this short form is it really spends time digging or just diving into the actual postures that we learn when we're doing Tai Chi. The postures, for an example, you might have heard some of these. So like parting the wild horse's mane, repulse the monkey. So I'm not making this stuff up, those are real names. So we really spend time learning those static postures, how to transitions into those postures and how to do the postures, how the postures should look, how we should sit. And what the core form doesn't spend a lot of time dealing with is the walking aspect of Tai Chi Chuan. So walking, there's a huge subject of walking Tai Chi Chuan. And a lot of the moves, like parting the wild horse's mane, you can do it in a walking style. So you're shifting left to right. And there's also repulse the monkey, which is done backwards, where you're walking and you're flowing backwards. And there's another one called wave hands like clouds, where you're moving not front or back, but you're moving sideways. So these are walking elements of the Tai Chi Chuan, and we don't do that in the core form. We're just learning the actual posture, and what that does is it kind of frees us up because that's pretty intense. It takes quite a while to learn that, and so we spend the time learning the postures and really learning how to get into the postures. Then when we move to the 24 or the 37 or the 108, we're going to learn that second step of learning how to go into the moving aspect of it, and everything is going to sink into place. Okay. Another thing that's really great about the short form, the core form, is that it allows us we can repeat it. So the 108, like I said, it takes 15 to 20 minutes. The short form, the 24, takes around 5 or 6 minutes to do. The short form takes about 1.5 minutes. So you can see you can pack a lot into this 1.5 minutes. So with that 1.5 minutes, we can go in and we can just keep doing it over and over and over again, and we can just layer in just layers of complexity into this. Once we learn how to do the dance, then we learn how to do the breath, then we learn how to do the shifting the weight. So we just keep layering upon layer upon layer. And as it's so pithy and short, it allows that to do it where we're doing the whole form every time. We're not just taking a little piece of the 108 and repeating that over and over again. We're taking a whole form and doing that. So that's another great aspect of it. So during our time together, outside of just learning the physical movements, we call it the dance, right? So you're learning the cha-cha, you're learning to do the tango. That's the physical movements. Outside of that, there are 3 things that we're going to really focus upon during our time together. Number 1 is we're going to learn about sinking the flesh, sinking the flesh away from the bones and sinking it down into our lower extremities. So this is a process that we know as sung, which is releasing, and this is the very foundation of building power within the body. When we talk about Tai Chi, Tai Chi Ch'uan, it was originally created as a fighting art, but it's known as something called an internal martial art as opposed to an external martial art. The internal martial art means that we're not relying on movement and body mechanics to do it. So we are relying upon some force that's working through the body. So with kind of long story short, this sung process is where we are allowing the bones to float and then sink the flesh. This is building up that ammunition, the power, the gunpowder we need to release and to move it through the body. So that's one thing we're going to be working on. The second thing we're going to be working on is opening and closing of the qua. And don't worry, we're going to get all into what is qua. Okay, we'll get into that down the road. But the qua is it's a part of our pelvis that we learn to open and close so we don't screw up our knees, number 1. And also because when we're turning from that place, this is also how we generate this internal power. Okay. The last thing we're going to also really spend time working on is the breath. We learn when to inhale, when to exhale. And to begin with, I have a video about breathing in Tai Chi Chuan. And I'm going to reiterate myself now, so sorry if you've already watched it. But when we're doing beginning Tai Chi Chuan, it's very important to connect the breath with the movements. And usually when the breath is connected, when we exhale, this is when we're going into the posture itself. Okay, so if we go into stork spreads her wings, this is the exhale. And then the transitions into that are the inhale. Okay, so this is the way we learn to begin with. It's a great way to learn because number 1, it notifies us that we need to be breathing. And that's, I think, in this culture, we need to understand that we have to always be breathing and we don't want to be holding our breath while we're doing our form. Okay, so it forces us to breathe while we're doing the form, number 1. That's so important. Is that eventually we are going to move away from that. And this, we're talking years down the road, but it's something that it's great training wheels for us, but eventually we can kind of abandon that because when we are exhaling, we're going to be issuing this internal power that we call it the jin. And we don't always want to be having to rely on an exhale in order to release the internal power, right? We want to be able to do it when we're inhaling or exhaling. So, but for right now, when you're learning, we really want to learn how to integrate the breath with this. It's very important. Okay, so what's going to be happening is I'm going to, over the next week or so, I'm going to release a front and back example or illustration of the core form Then I'm going to do both sides, too, left and right side, facing west and facing east. So this way you can see the form from all different angles. And then starting in week 1, we're going to just start with the opening, the movement. And so I'm going to be standing the whole time. So this is the only time I'm going to be seated. But anyway, from that point on, I'll be standing and we'll be working together. Okay, so I would appreciate just subscribe, any comments you might have. One thing I do want to say, the one thing I will not be really emphasizing too much, and that's the martial application of the Tai Chi Chuan form. Why wouldn't I do that? It's a fighting art, right? Well, in my mind, unless you really understand how this internal power works, it's not really practical to learn how to use it, right? It's like somebody giving you a gun and saying, here, just, learn how to fire, but you have no bullets in the gun, so it's like, what use is it? To begin with, we're going to learn the principles of the form. We're going to learn how to dance with the form, and then we're going to start learning the principles of how do we start building this, the ammunition, the power that we need to release. So this is going to be happening over the next 20 weeks or so. We'll be doing this. Once you get through all that, then we can start to build on this. But to begin with, it's not, of course I'm going to bring in, there will be certain moves that there is suggestions about what you could be doing martially, like in a fighting application. Of course, I'll be bringing in that, and it's going to be lots of fun. But just to say, if you're wondering, like, well, there's a lot of more time dedicated onto just the actual movement. Where's the fighting applications? If you want to learn fighting applications about this stuff, whatever the movement we're working on, you can go online and find 1,000 different ways of using it. But in my mind, we always have to connect it. This is an internal martial art. It's not an external martial art that's been driven by our muscles and by how strong we are, how hard we can punch. And so it has nothing to do with that. This is very different. And it takes a long time to develop that kind of power. Okay, it takes 3 to 5 years, give or take, to start to generate that kind of energy. So let's not be too hung up on that right now. All right, that's so. Anyway, looking forward to working with you guys. And any comments, just let me know down below. We'll talk soon and get ready to learn an amazing form. All right, take care. Bye.